The Ferrari Testarossa, Type F110, is a 12-cylinder mid-engine sports car manufactured by Ferrari, which went into production in 1984 as the successor to the Ferrari Berlinetta Boxer. The Pininfarina-designed car was originally produced from 1984 until 1991, with two model revisions following the end of Testarossa production called the 512 TR and F512 M, which were produced from 1992 until 1996. Including revised variations, almost 10,000 cars in total were produced, making it at the time one of the most mass-produced Ferrari models. The Testarossa is a two-door coupe that premiered at the 1984 Paris Auto Show. All versions of the Testarossa were available with a rear-mounted, 5-speed manual transmission. The rear mid-engine design, engine between the axles but behind the cabin, keeps the center of gravity in the middle of the car, which increases stability and improves the car's cornering ability, and thus results in a standing weight distribution of 40% front, 60% rear. The original Testarossa was re-engineered for the 1992 model year and was introduced as the 512 TR meaning Testarossa, at the Los Angeles Auto Show, effectively as a completely new car, and an improved weight distribution of 41% front, 59% rear. Another new variant, called the F512 M, was introduced at the 1994 Paris Auto Show. The car dropped the TR initials and added the M, which in Italian stood for modificata, or translated to modified, and was the final version of the Testarossa, which continued its predecessor's weight distribution improvement of 42% front, 58% rear. The F512M was Ferrari's last vehicle that featured the flat 12 engine. The Testarossa is a recognized cultural icon of the 1980s, and was popularized by media including the 1984 television series Miami Vice, from the 1986 season onward, and Sega's 1986 video game Outrun. Development. The Testarossa traces its roots back to the faults of the 1981 512 BBI. The problems that the Testarossa was conceived to fix included a cabin that got increasingly hot from the indoor plumbing that ran between the front-mounted radiator and the midships-mounted engine, and a lack of luggage space. To fix these problems, the Testarossa was designed to be larger than its predecessor. For instance, at 1,976 mm, 77.8 in, wide, the Testarossa was half a foot wider than the Boxer. This resulted in an increased wheelbase that stretched about 64 mm, 2.5 in, to 2,550 mm, 100.4 in, which was used to accommodate luggage in a carpeted storage space under the front forward opening hood. The increase in length created extra storage space behind the seats in the cabin. Headroom was also increased with a roofline half an inch taller than the Boxer. The design came from Pininfarina. The design team at Pininfarina consisted of Ian Cameron, Guido Campoli, Diego Adina, and Emanuele Nicosia. They were led by design chief Leonardo Fioravanti, who also designed many other contemporary Ferrari models. The design was originated by Nicosia, but the guidance of Fioravanti was equally important. Being trained in aerodynamics, Fioravanti applied his know-how to set the layout of the car. The designers were originally trying to minimize the necessary side intakes, which also could not be left open due to American safety legislation, but then decided on making them a statement of style instead, one that ended up becoming emblematic of the late 80s. The Testarossa did not need a rear spoiler. The aerodynamic drag coefficient of CD equals 0.36 was significantly lower than the Lamborghini Countach's 0.42. The styling was a departure from the curvaceous Boxer, one which caused some controversy. The side strakes, sometimes referred to as cheese graters, or egg slicers, that spanned from the doors to the rear fenders were needed for rules in several countries outlawing large openings on cars. Unlike the Berlinetta Boxer, the Testarossa had twin-side radiators near the engine at the rear instead of a single radiator up front, eliminating much piping and allowing for a much cooler cabin. After passing through the engine bay, the cooling air exited through the vents at the engine lid and the tail. The strakes also made the Testarossa wider at the rear than at the front, thus increasing stability and handling. One last unique addition to the new design was a single high-mounted side view mirror on the driver's side. On US-based cars, the mirror was lowered to a more normal placement for the 1987 model year and was quickly joined by a passenger side view mirror for the driver to be able to make safe lane changes. The Testarossa name pays homage to the famed 1957 World Sports Car Championship winning 250 Testarossa sports racing car. Testarossa, which literally means red head in Italian, refers to the red-painted cam covers sported by both cars' 12-cylinder engines. Like its predecessor, the Testarossa used double wishbone front and rear suspension systems. Ferrari improved traction by adding 10-inch wide alloy rear wheels. The Testarossa's drivetrain was also an evolution of the 512 BBI. Its engine used near-identical displacement and compression ratio, but unlike the 512 BBI had 4-valve cylinder heads that were finished in red. Engine. The Testarossa has a naturally aspirated 4.9 L, 4,943 cubic centimeters, longitudinally mounted, Tipo F110 flat 12 engine. The engine has DOHC 4 valves per cylinder, 48 valves in total, and is lubricated via a dry sump system. The engine has a compression ratio of 9.20 to 1. These combine to provide a maximum power of 287 kilowatts, 390 PS, 385 horsepower, at 6,300 RPM and maximum torque of 490 Nm, 361 lb-ft, at 4,500 RPM. Early US versions of the car had the same engine, but had slightly less power, which stood at 283 kilowatts, 385 PS, 380 horsepower. The Testarossa can accelerate from 0 to 100 km per hour, 62 miles per hour, in 5.8 seconds, and from 0 to 97 km per hour, 60 miles per hour, in 5.2 seconds, and on to 161 km per hour, 100 miles per hour, in 11.4 seconds. Though Motor Trend magazine managed 5.29 seconds and 11.3 seconds, respectively. It can complete a standing, from stationary, quarter-mile 1/4 mi, 402 m, in 13.5 seconds and a standing kilometer in 23.8 seconds. The top speed of the Testarossa is estimated at 290 km per hour, 180 miles per hour. Wheels and suspension. When introduced for the 1985 model year, the Testarossa had magnesium single-bolt knockoff wheels with a 16.33 inches, 415 mm, diameter. These wheels used the Michelin TRX tires having sizes of size 240/45 VR415 at the front and 280/45 VR415 at the rear. In the 1986 model year, the wheels kept the same design but were changed to a standard 16 inches, 406 mm, diameter, with a width of 8 inches at the front and 10 inches at the rear. Goodyear Gatorback 225/50 VR16 front tires and 255/50 VR16 rear tires were fitted. However, for the US market, the cars were delivered with the metric-sized TRX wheels until the 1989 model year. The rear suspension consisted of independent, unequal-length wishbones, coil springs, twin telescopic shock absorbers on each side, and an anti-roll bar. The entire drivetrain and suspension was designed to be removed as a unit from underneath the car so the engine and timing belts could be serviced. In the mid of the 1988 model year, the suspension was redesigned and the wheels were changed again from the single-bolt knockoff setup to the standard Ferrari 5-bolt pattern. The wheel design still resembled the ones installed at the Testarossa's debut. The front brakes have a diameter of 309 mm, 12.17 in, and the rear brakes have a diameter of 310 mm, 12.20 in. Reception. The car received a positive reception from the automotive press. It was featured on the cover of Road and Track magazine 9 times in just 5 years. It lost comparison tests to Lamborghini Countach, Alpina B10 bi-turbo, and BMW M5. Well-known Testarossa owners included Elton John, Marty Pello, Alain Delon, O.J. Simpson, Rod Stewart, Michael Jordan, Mike Tyson, John Carmack, Dr. Dre, MC Hammer, Austrian Formula One racing driver Gerhard Berger, and Gary Monsieur. Don Johnson, who famously drove a white Testarossa on Miami Vice, was gifted a brand new silver 1989 Testarossa by Enzo Ferrari himself, who was a fan of Miami Vice. Michael Mann, executive producer of the series, also had a custom-painted, blue metallic Testarossa. Jack Nur out of Driving Today states, the Testarossa was a car designed and built to cash in on an image. And since cashing in was what the 80s were all about, it was the perfect vehicle for its time. The saving grace was, it was also a damn good automobile. Although successful on the road, the Testarossa did not participate in any racing event, unlike the 512 BBI, which had done so with minor success. As Ferrari's flagship model during the 1980s, the car made numerous appearances in pop culture, most notably in the arcade game Outrun, and in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th seasons of Miami Vice. The car has subsequently become synonymous with 1980s yuppies and is an icon of 1980s retro culture. Its signature side strakes have become a popular aftermarket body component for wide-arch aesthetic body kits. The side strakes also spawned body kits that were designed for cars such as the Pontiac Fiero and the Mazda B-Series pickup trucks. These were referred to as Truckstarossa kits, in addition to a wide variety of Japanese and American sports cars and motorcycles such as the Honda VFR.